Nothing from me, sir. I'm still revising the previous lessons.
Oh, do let me know, means we can have an extra session whenever you're free. And, we'll go over this, we'll revise those things as well. Okay.
Definitely, sir. Definitely. Thank you. Thank you.
Any confusion, I'll happy to, clarify those things. Don't worry about that. So
Sure, sir.
let's start the seventh knowledge area called project communication management. Now, the communication management, includes all type of communication. We do orally, with the digital media, and we do through your, even our body language and all those things. So there's quite a good amount of scope in terms of improving communication. And this is a kind of more of personal trait rather than a management trait. So, as a skill, you need to acquire it personally. We need to, be a better communicator, a positive communicator, or what you can say, assertive communicator in a, progressive manner. That's what the PMI and overall, other management institute, expects from a given project manager. As a leader, the communication is one of the most crucial aspects of how you communicate with others, including your team, your peers, your seniors, and the stakeholders. Stakeholder communication is one of the most important for the projects, but otherwise, your team member communication is also carries a lot of weightage in terms of daily progress, in terms of maintaining those efficiency, what we've discussed about, so that the project gets executed at the topmost efficiency, with the least possible time, best possible budget, and so on and so forth. Okay, there are only three process groups in project communication management: plan communication management, managed communication, and monitor communication. These are pretty, vast process group if you are looking for, if you really, deep dive into it. But still, at a, larger stage, we need to communicate clearly. We need to remove all the noises from the communication, and the communication should acquire desired result. That's what the intention to start with, right? As normal, we have, plan communication as an umbrella process. We start with a integration project management plan. Then we have managed communication in terms of day-to-day based. How can we build more channels, informal or formal, or basically try to reduce noise within those channels and try to select which is everybody is comfortable in these, communications. And then monitor communication in terms of, are we sharing the information which is need to be shared rather than sharing any and all informations with everybody. This is how the freshers or, the first time project managers might work, share all the information what you have known. But normally the PMI believes we have something called information dissemination. So dissemination talks about a controlled execution of controlled sharing of information across the stakeholder, across the team, and so on and so forth, so that they don't really, leverage those communication against you or against project efficiencies. And that's the crucial part which we're going to learn throughout this project communication management. Okay, so let me take you to the first process group, plan project communications. So here, let's start to understand from input, tools and techniques, and output perspectives. Here we are talking about project charter as an input, where we'll understand basically the core objective of the project, the actual ultimate or, unique goal we're going to achieve with this project, product development or services. Then the other project management plan, which we normally include, is resource management plan. Yes, we do communicate with human resources mostly. We don't communicate with materials and machines, but yes, mostly the communication limits our scope to the human communications, and this includes the stakeholder on top of the team communication. So that's why it gets more interesting. Then we have a stakeholder engagement plan. Now, stakeholder engagement plan basically give you a clear idea who is the crucial stakeholder, who has all those approval at his credentials, and so on and so forth. So we normally try to address him with the utmost care and utmost importance, so that he or she is ready to share all his approvals as per our need and as per speedy approvals. And that's what we are looking for. The documents we normally input in plan communication management are requirement documentation and stakeholder register. Requirement documentation specifically talks about what all type of requirements have we gathered, what all types of requirements we are actually working on, where we stand in terms of the progressive nature of the requirement, and which are the stakeholder who might have initiated these requirements or who might have shared these requirements as their wish list. So those becomes crucial because they know the length and breadth of their thought process. They know the length and breadth of the requirement. We try to capture within our documentation, but still there could be some gap. So we might need to validate those requirements sometimes, or even if any additional suggestions coming from them are very crucial in terms of those requirements. So that's why we need to keep a keen eye on such additions, such change requests from these important stakeholders. Then of course we have enterprise environmental factors, all the environmental factor which affects your organizations from external, where we might get disturbed due to something like COVID, something like rainy season and all those things, or we might get added efficiency because of any third party tool available, and that can add the efficiencies to the project. Yes, we need to understand and study the cost distribution models and decision making process as well. And the organization process assets, these are the assets which are developed within our organizations to make the project better, efficient, or keep improving ourselves day by day. And that's why organizational process assets do help us out left and right, or do support this project execution in a progressive manner. Then we go to the tools and techniques. Here in tools and techniques, we normally use SMEs, COEs, and experts to make sure if we have any understanding of these stakeholders, specifically how to react to somebody's comment, what type of cultural fitments do we have? Because whenever you discuss with anybody in terms of verbally or through formal channels like email, WhatsApp, and everything, there is a basically cultural underlying what he or she feels good about, what he or she might not feel very good about, and those scenarios. So here we'll try to take inputs from all these experts, all these subject matter experts to guide us to these do this communication better. Then we have communication requirement analysis. Here we'll try to understand what type of communication is a need for the project. Does email sounds better? Like in the COVID matter, we are mostly relying on Google Meet or Zoom Meet and others video conferencing too, because the physical meeting were not possible or barred by the legal constraint. So here we need to understand how these requirements are going to get solved, how to get evolved, how to get captured in depth, in conciseness, so that we also basically go and do sanctioning or do what you can say approvals of those design diagrams and all those things as well. Okay, so here we want to decide what type of communication requirement analysis are we going to do, then which type of technologies are we going to use for communication, like we just discussed, Zoom, Google Meet, what else if you have even we have WebEx, we have the dime a dozen of such technologies available, and we need to choose according to the organization you are working on or the preference of the client or preference of the stakeholders. Then communication models, there are quite a few communication models available in types of, you can go from a liberal to autocratic, and there are various models mentioned in between in communication science. So here we need to use these models accordingly. It's not like one fits all type of communication. So sometimes you need to be liberal, sometimes you need to be more autocratic, sometimes you need to be in between these two, so that you'll listen to the client, understand what he or she is trying to tell you, and then go accordingly in terms of these communication models as well. Then we have communication methods, and methods talk about these channels. Channels are basically how do you discuss a point with a given stakeholder, given client, even given team member. Is it a Zoom call, Google Meet, or do you go meet and greet him or her personally? Or is it possible to have something like late evening meeting or early morning meeting or lunch meeting and so on and so forth. So it depends on how you use these communication methods. it's basically a kind of added, support to our communication thought process, communication methodology, so that the communication should be most effective as per as the need. Then we have, uh, as we've discussed, interpersonal team skills as well. The communication style assessment in terms of the other party, how he or she is communicating with you. Is he or she reserved, fundamentalist, liberal, open? You have to understand these things in depth and then plan your communication strategies. Because with a liberal person, with an open person, you can talk openly. But with a reserved person, you need to really watch about your words. You need to watch about your whatever few sentences you shared across and try to get maximum output from it. And that's how the efficient communication works. Then we should have a political awareness also. Here, political awareness talks about how the other person respects a political party, like Republican, Democrat, and what all other party you have in regional, mind as well. Because there are some individuals who get locked up in terms of if you discuss or if you, praise other parties. And this thing a normal human psychology. So we need to understand if he or she quite, if not vocal, quite lenient towards one of the political parties or not. So this way, we need to understand the political awareness. Similar with cultures. Some of the really, crucial examples are in North America, Canada region, we have mostly multicultural teams. So we need to be really, understanding about their cultures, their, holidays, their occupation with their, religious duties and all those things also. So cultural awareness is also critical in terms of communication, because within this communication, we need to really, praise them in terms of birthdays, anniversaries, in terms of their religious festivals and all those things. So cultural awareness is really important to get opened up with informal channels as well. And these informal channels can let you make a good friends as well. So that way, it's really easier to connect with a person on an informal level, which helps in a formal communication, because even if you say, few sentences, the other person can understand you completely about the background, the foreground, and the requirement of the communication and so on. So that's why cultural fitment, cultural awareness is also very crucial in terms of communication. Then data representation in terms of stakeholder engagement matrix. Now, this stakeholder engagement matrix is nothing but a most important Excel sheet or a table, you can say, where I have a various stakeholder names, their contacts, this time to talk, their anniversaries, birthdays, pet names, pet birthdays, and so on and so forth, so that I'll get connect with them on many informal levels as well. So if they have any problem, any unsatisfactory matter, they can report to me efficiently. They can report to me freely and frankly, which basically gives rise to a good amount of satisfaction generation even before you deliver your product, solution or services. And this makes almost a kind of a win or a proactive win, I'll say, in quite a good amount of time. Even the project has some challenges, even the delivery has some challenges. If you're really connected with the stakeholder, with the client on a personal level, he or she give you a call before some what I can say, some of these challenges to be reported on online portal or a bug reporting system or something like that. So here we are trying to understand how we can get connected with the stakeholder on an informal level, which gives a kind of personal connect with the stakeholders, where I can really understand if there's a problem, if there's an unsatisfactory, or what you can say, non-comfortableness, growing amongst the stakeholder. I can sense them quite earlier, and then I can steer my project accordingly for the maximum possible satisfaction to be acquired, to be achieved. And that's how I do it. And of course, the meetings. Meetings is quite crucial, quite instrumental in communication. We do meet whenever you need them. Might be Google Meet, Zoom Meet, or you could see the body language. You could see or understand how he or she is reacting to your dialogues, reacting to your suggestions, reacting to your advice, and then how he or she is giving his her advice, suggestion, reactions for the complete progress of your project. And the as we say, the customer satisfaction is the utmost result which you can achieve throughout the project, and which really don't have a kind of one-to-one ratio or a direct connection with the actual financials of the project. But this is a kind of progressive acquisition or progressive achievement a project manager should do in terms of achieving the satisfaction or the confidence of a client progressively from the day one till the day end, and build some informal channel to understand if they are basically not comfortable or have any problem with the project progress, and they can be vocal about with you, so that you can understand or you can adjust the overall project execution in a strategic manner, which will basically make them comfortable to the maximum possible efficiencies. The outputs are communication management plan. This is normally a Word document where we include the stakeholder register, where we normally mention how the stakeholder register is a stakeholder is open, closed, reserved person. What is the best way to get his inputs or understand his views on a current progress, and how I have achieved it last time. Was it better? If there are any learnings, we can basically go to COE or SMEs or any experts who have worked with the same stakeholder in previous times. Then the project management plan updates are stakeholder engagement plan. We keep updating the stakeholder engagement plan to make sure if you learn anything new about anyone's personality, something like if he or she likes, baseball, he or she likes football, soccer, whatnot. So we'll try to understand and try to steer our communication in those directions, or try to make him or her more at home, more ease, like they are talking to their friends rather than in a formal capacity. And that opens up quite a good amount of other doors, like to gather the satisfaction proactively, to understand the person in terms of how he or she will react in a given certain news, or certain unpleasant news as well. Then we have a project document updates, project schedule, and stakeholder register. They mentioned project schedule because we need to understand, we need to plan these meetings. And most of the new project manager, they do keep forgetting these things. So we are talking about, managing these, what you can say, meetings with a bit of planning, with a bit of schedule attached to your plan as well. So if you have a meeting planning with somebody through lunch, through dinner, or even through walking across the office, premises after lunch or something, you might need to add this thing to your schedule as well, so that the schedule reflects actual meeting and the minutes of meeting, or the important discussions and action points you have discussed, so that that meeting can be a conclusive meeting, that meeting can be a result oriented meeting, and with the respective stakeholder we are coordinating on as and when we get the time possible. And believe me, these type of communication, they normally takes time. They takes quite a good amount of time to know a person, to understand a person. To understand a person who is not open enough, who is not what I can say educated enough, it's further challenge. You need to spend more time there, and those scenario can disturb your project schedule as well. So that's why they mentioned project schedule update in the plan communication management. Any questions so far, or am I going too fast? Please do suggest me. Madam, sir.
So far good, sir.
So far. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Let's move to the next slide, where we'll try to understand the cross-cultural communication and the noise and the other part of it. These type of this is a really good slide. I have taken this slide from PMI, PM book. So here let's try to understand how this slide actually help us in a day-to-day life. A current emotional state, yes. Emotional quotient is also another things which we start tracking in the last decade or so. Emotional quotient is how the other person emotionally Is he open enough? Is he attached with you emotionally? That gives you a quite good, proactive option for a project manager to interact with the client or repetitive clients. That's why even in many IT organizations, or in many organizations for that matter, they use repetitive project manager for the similar client, because you try to open up these informal communications where the other side project manager, senior project manager, VP, and all those things, so that the approvals for your projects come really handy and in an efficient manner. So you don't have to wait for these things. So let's try to understand from a typical communication, instance where sender is basically sending something, receiver is receiving something. Okay, here let's take the first example. Encode is basically whatever we wrap up in terms of sending a message. Hey, hi, how are you? A simple sentence can be reflected to the receiver as, oh wow, this guy is inquiring me about about my health, and other things. So yeah, he'd say, oh hi, Ravindra, I'm fine. How are you? So I'd say, oh yeah, I'm good too. So what are you up to? And this is a simple, questions, a generic social question in North America. What are you up to means what are you doing currently? You don't normally ask what are you doing currently. If you're senior to the person, you might ask these questions, but otherwise that sound a bit subordinate in terms of or insubordination in terms of North American communication. So we need to understand, hi, how are you doing is typically a question where you might not answer quite a few times and say, oh yeah, I'm good, thank you. How are you? And you can reply this thing in a social way. So every of such region, even within North America, the social communication, or what can say icebreaker communication, differs. And this way, what we do, we need to understand how these communication are culturally, encoded or decoded. Even the body language, like shake hand, not compulsory in quite a few uh, states in North America. But if you go to something like Texas, or if you go to something like southern states, even the hugging is, normally not that welcome. So just handshake is more than enough to basically start building the intimacy, or start building the physical connection also. Now here we are looking for a kind of communication, or transferring an encoded message to the receiver, which typically decodes it and acknowledge the message. And this way there could be some noise also. So you need to loud enough to make him or her understand your message, and you need to be really listening with a best possible what you can say open ears, so that he can hear her or his message quite attentively. And that's where we can reduce maximum noise in this transmit. And even the receiver can give you additional feedback in terms of, yes, I'm good. Yeah, I'm working on this project as we were discussing last time, and it's really going good. But I feel, a bit challenging about this scenario. So I'll note it down, and I'll try to basically address those challenges on priority. Let's try to understand the current emotional state. Here, the culture is basically depends on generation, national, professional discipline, gender, and personality biases as well. Let's discuss them one by one. The generation in the sense, if you look at the latest generation, mostly in western part of the countries like LA or California, and here what we find, the person are quite open enough to share their uncomfortableness or share their disagreement freely. Same with New York or Chicago. These are what we can say metro cities or big cities or evolved cultures. But if you go to something like St. Louis, something like Iowa, Wisconsin, here the communities are quite close-knit community. So then they don't open up quite easily. So you need to understand to ask the right question or send right messages to those persons so that they'll start speaking with you. And if you go to more like, Wisconsin and those states, those people are quite less spoken. They don't speak quite often. So to understand their sentiment, you need to dig up, you need to dig enough to start communicating with them as a friend, as a colleague, or as a co-worker, and we need to understand that thing. Similarly, the nationality. If you are a proper American national, the culture lets you open up quite aggressively. But if you are from something like China, India, or South Asian countries or North Asian countries, they won't open up quite easily. So even nationality drives your understandingness, openness, adaptiveness up to a great extent. But again, these are thumb rules. Not everybody. There could be exceptions also. And then we have professional discipline. If the other person is senior enough, senior like a project manager or a leader, he or she knows, rather than wasting time, let's get to the point and start discussing about what I should discuss at this point. And that's why these are more, clear in thoughts, and they'll eat less of your times, or they are efficient in communication. Then even gender. So even as a male talking to a female, they can talk a lot. But a male talking to a male or female talking to a female, there could be some restriction. And these are, come natural to us. Means if you really understand the human psychology of communication, this matters in a great level. So if you want to have a meeting with the other gender, if you want to have a meeting with one person, try to suggest other gender to go meet and greet him, because then they can connect at a different level as well. And this is the way we plan our communication. Okay. And these are mostly talking about the cross-cultural communication. We need to understand their sentiments, their festivities, their preoccupiedness due to their religious belief and all those things. So all these things play a good part in our day-to-day communication as well, without we knowing it. The way we got our upbringing, believe me, our culture, as far as Hindu culture, is really open up. It's quite frank. We don't have any very strong belief in terms of culture or our gods or our deities for that matter. But if you go to some like Mid-Western or other communities, they can be very stringent about their thoughts, beliefs, and their these things get reflected in communication also. So we need to sensitive about in terms of keeping our end goal in mind, and try to work around that rather than going into this pitfall like your religion, my religion, and those kind of discussions. Again, any communication overhead are suggested to be aware of, or out of, so that you can stick to our actual result requirement for a given communication, for a given communication channel, for a given communication with a person as well. Okay, does that make sense to you?
Yes, sir.
So
your explanation about the different people and the way they communicate, I totally appreciate that. I live in Wisconsin and I can very much relate to that.
thank you, ma'am. This is basically the output of 18 countries I have worked in. And believe me, I have my challenges, and I have my really, what you can say, not so good experience as well. I worked in Middle East, I worked in Yugoslavia, I worked in Cambodia. So, quite a good amount of cultures. Even I worked in Japan. So these are really kind of extremities, believe me. And yeah, I worked in North America as well as Europe. Even if you try to compare North America with Europe, there are a lot of very striking differences. Means religiously they are at a similar level, but still the way you provocate your religious or you emphasize your religious thoughts, the level of it within the communication, it's a bit different from North America, even in European regions. If you go to Canadian regions, we are mostly accustomed to the French, and French are they are not really stringent about their religious belief, but they have their own belief, like how you should eat. All those 3 knife and 3 spoons theory, you
True,
might have,
true.
and it's really irritating sometimes. Means, I have 2 French in my team whenever I was working in St. Louis. And those were really good gentlemen, one lady, one, good gentleman. And we used to go to eat pizza, believe me. And, I went to US for around 3.5 years. So I know how normally a Caucasian male will react for eating pizza. They don't care. I want to eat pizza, I'll eat with my bare hand. Well, I'll wash my hand, that's definitely good. but still I don't really care about which knife, which fork, and why it shouldn't sound with that China ware and all those things. So I used to eat with hand. Even these guys who quite vocal about their uncomfortableness. They say, hey, Ravindra, could you please eat with fork and spoon? No. I like it this way. I can feel the heat. I can feel the temperature, and my hand can taste also the way I feel. Then
Yeah, they correct. It's quite unagreeable for them.
yeah, but yeah, sometimes you need to really respect them and try with some knife and fork, and then give it up with this really banging the fork and time on knife on that Chinaware or the dish, and they'll get irritated, more irritated. So they'll let you eat with your hand only. So this type of strategy, you need to work around. Well, but if the client is a French, then you are stuck. Means you need to eat that bloody pizza with a fork and it takes a hell lot of time. I really, I'm a quick eater. I'm born and brought in Mumbai. So you know how Mumbai and New Yorkers are. We really eat fast and we really get away with the eating rather than the French. They enjoy eating. They enjoy these disciplines and they try to gloat about it, believe me. But yeah,
True.
nothing bad about it. That's also, that's their culture. That's how they, basically started bringing up, right? So yeah, so you can't contradict with such scenario. Sometimes you need to bid yourself for these. Sometimes you can stand straight and say, no, I like this way. Even there was a client, a French client, uh, who mostly stayed in Middle East. So he used to really gloat about these disciplines and all those things. But at the end, he also started eating pizza with the hand because that's how close we got. And then they say, yeah, this is much better than the book and knife. You say, yeah, boss, you can eat it quicker, and you can, if you want to digest it, let's walk, a couple of miles, and that's about it. So yes, so that's why even PMI says opening up informal channels gives you this credibility, so that the other person can talk freely with you, talk apart from his belief and all those upbringings, and then he can even try to experience new challenges with you or try to walk those adventurous steps with you as well. So that's why communication is really important and need to be very careful whenever we are having this cross-cultural communication. Okay. So
So
let me, yeah, go
I can add to this fork and spoon.
please,
So
please, please.
I think there was a diplomat or politician from India who went to Europe, and he was actually told he said, okay, when his food actually came on the table, he started eating with his hands. And so they actually advised him to use the spoon and fork. He said, you know what? My hands, I'm more comfortable with my hands because my fingers go only in my mouth, but these forks and spoons, knives, they go in so many mouths, right? So I
Right,
think
right.
my own fingers are more hygienic than all this. So
Yeah. So yes, that guy was a doctor and an ambassador to the French. This was in 1962 when this new ambassador, or I think assistant ambassador, deployed from India, and he was a kind of priest. We call sadhuji, right? But yes, he was in a formal clothes. So this French believe that he know all these Western culture, Western treatment story. But when this guy, do those, we do those Chitravati, or what we call, we worship our food before eating, right? So he did those things. Then French was really baffled. Why this guy's worrying these, plants and whatever he's eating at that time, because he was a vegetarian, so he mostly took the vegetarian stuff, not any thing. But yeah, he was at this mm, what you can say, table for lunch and dinners. So they couldn't really think. They asked him to eat with forks and knives. So he said, no, I don't know, how many insects or how much bacteria these carries, and he was a doctor. So they couldn't basically contradict with him when he say like this. So, yeah, there are scenarios, and, but sometimes you need to really bend a bit. Sometimes you can stand straight. So, please decide on the situation type. Please decide in terms of how the opponent will feel about you as well. So there's a bit of consideration to be done in terms of, a leadership skill. Yeah. And it's a kind of trait we need to, have between us. Okay. Chalo. So let me move on to our next slide. And this is really a big point which we can keep discussing about about the cultural differences. That's really an interesting topic. Okay, let's move to the next process group called managed communication. Here we are trying to manage the communication on a day-to-day basis, on a progressive basis. The inputs are the resource management plan, communication management plan, and stakeholder engagement plan. Resource management plan, because you need to communicate with your resources on almost every hour, every minute basis. So that's one of the most crucial entities. And should we have a resource management plan? Yes. These resource management plan, we do have the hierarchy, the resource chart, resource graph, and all those things, where even many project managers I have seen, they have a striking remarks about a particular resource, saying, okay, you need to be really careful while talking with this resource in terms of these points. Like, he has some anger issue, he has some ego issues and all those things. And normally as a PM, even I used to maintain, but these copies for my personal, view only. I don't want to judge anybody, but whenever I want to start the communication, I need to understand how the person is, or how the person will react to me after I say hello, hi, and all those scenarios as well. So here I have to build a resource management plan for me to understand how should I react to a team member. And when you have a bigger team, like the size of, well, nowadays you don't, but in previous good old years, I used to have a team of 45 and 65 and all those things as well. So that way, it's really challenging to interact with the, your team member and forget about how he or she will react because of his or her upbringing, or cultures, and other challenges as well. So even personal challenges rather than cultural challenges. So we need to understand, we need to keep in mind whenever we communicate with these resources on day in, day out basis. Then communication management plan, where we have these proactively planned meeting for getting to know the client well, getting to, getting our communication aligned with our project requirement. Like if you want to get some, design architecture sanction proactively, you might plan more meeting with these stakeholders correspondingly and get those approvals in place. And that's why stakeholder engagement plan also. So who is the most, liberal amongst clients? And if he or she is really, liberal enough to get it approved right away, then I don't have to waste my time in various additional meeting as well. So this is like, I need to start planning my meetings or this communication proactively, so that the project progress gets benefited in terms of efficiency, in terms of quick turnarounds for the positive outcome of a project. Then the project documents updates are change log. Again, while accepting a change is also an art of communication. Most of the time, we need to diplomatically decline it for the current sprint. But the way you have to say it, yeah, I'm accepting it. We'll get it done, we'll get it done, we'll get it done. But yes, we'll get it done in our next sprint. That you don't have to say it, but it's implicitly understood by others as well. And you can tell them my current sprint is full, this, that. And believe me, these type of communication you'll learn in your project, in your first project only. Means you'll start learning this thing in your first project, wherever you'll understand how diplomatically I can say no rather than explicitly saying no. And yes, this is how you normally manage your clients specifically, or even your change control board most of the time. Specifically for change log or issue log. Even any new issue pops up, and there are a couple of resources who are going to work on this, which might disturb their work schedule. So I need to make sure my critical tasks are intact. They'll not disturb with these type of new issues popping up left and right. So I might have an extra resource in my pocket which can be worked on these issue logs. Then of course there are lessons learned register in terms of whatever knowledge archival we have already acquired in terms of doing this communication management effectively for similar scenario. So I'll do read through those knowledge archival to make sure I implement a couple of such techniques to make your project more efficient, more promising, and so on and so forth. Then we have quality reports also. Now, quality report talks about the challenging stuff of how much reworks I have on my plate, how much what I can say, loss of quality or cost of quality increase I have on my plate, and I'll discuss this thing with my team members so that they'll take it positively and they'll try to improve it the next time. And that's what they intended. I don't want to agonize them to do more mistakes. And that's why the quality reports are really an important start or inputs for managed communication. I need to guide everybody, right? At the end of the day, as a result. But these quality reports, some leaders can express their concern in the most negative way. So we need to avoid from such scenario. We need to stay away from such scenario and try to share the quality reports, even the challenging quality reports, in the most positive manner. Then we have a risk report. Risk report comes whenever there's a risk audit. So the risk audit, we normally have at least 1 or 2 warning in terms of most probable risk or some ignored risk and all those things. So for such scenario, we need to understand how we can do the justice to the risk management plan or risk reporting quite actively. And we need to discuss with the risk manager within our team. Then we have a stakeholder register also. The stakeholder register, as we seen in the last process group, similarly, we keep updating our stakeholder registers whenever I get more insight of any stakeholder or any criticalness of stakeholders and so on and so forth. Then I have EEFs and OTAs as the last process we have discussed. The tools and techniques, communication technology. Again, we are repeating quite a good number of the last process group tools and techniques. Communication technology, again, Google Meet, Zoom Meet, whatever technology you have decided to follow with your communication management plan, you normally try to understand if your peers, your team members are not, educated enough, you might plan a training session or a kind of workshop for adopting this technology throughout your team member. Then we have communication methods, email, non-formal communication, phone calls, WhatsApp, and nowadays we have so many communication methods, even the Instagram, the Twitters of the world. But yes, we need to really worry about any cultural differences, any conflicting scenario, any conflicting political behavior as well. Okay. Then the communication skills are communication competence. Can I communicate well? And yes, as a leader, I need to keep assessing myself left and right. If I can communicate well, then yes. If I can't, then please believe that and use some other resources to communicate. Means sometimes you might find a better person who can talk positively, who can really get connected with people easily. And you might put that person forward in terms of communicating with crucial stakeholders so that you can get positive increase and the projects get effectively executed. Then feedback. Of course, we need to really understand the feedback coming from the client in terms of communication, in terms of any challenges, uncomfortableness, and all those things, so that my project approvals, project sanctions won't stop for such petty things. And there are non-verbal communication as well. Non-verbal communication, what we talk about the body language, what we talk about what we can see on the facial recognition or the facial stance of a person. And nowadays, there are quite a good amount of theories in non-formal communication. Many organizations normally have a 6-monthly, workshop for at least 3 or 4 hours for non-verbal communication, because non-verbal communications during your Google Meet, Zoom Meet plays a lot of important factors, and you can read quite a good amount of things from the non-verbal communication. A simple non-verbal actions like pinching your nose. Psychology says whenever you pinch your nose, you're really trying to tell a lie to the opponent. Is it always the case? Try to find out in your real life. Okay, most of the time, yes, but sometimes no. It can be due to some mosquito bite, or it can be due to some colder weather or something like that as well. But yes, these type of non-verbal hints do help you out to understand the other person very well. Again, the presentations. How do you present yourself for this communication? Even if you are Indian and if you normally go with the normal formal clothing, it really helps. The other parties start respecting you if you go in a formal meeting. But if you go in a really casual clothes, and if the other person believes in formal clothing, it's really difficult. Within this, New York area, I don't know why, but people do wear suit in on almost daily outing. Means if you want to go for a walk, you normally wear a suit. I don't know why, but in your case, that's the normal these things. If you look at the the western part of North America region, you normally be in a casual clothes. So you normally have unironed half sleeve shirt and a typical trouser, or a kind of even sometimes a t-shirt and a track pant as well on a weekend mostly. So this way, these cultural differences, uh, we need to really keep a keen eye on. We need to observe and then learn from these things as well, and try to be do as the Romans do, as the English says. So it's like wherever you are, try to understand the culture within yourself. Try to get adjusted to that, so that the life is much easier. They might feel like you are one of them. And believe me, Indians, we are not that flexible in terms of these clothing things. I don't know why, but we have really weird thought process of ladies' clothes, gents' clothes, this clothes, that's clothes. Please, let's move away from that. And the way Americans, right? A t-shirt and a shorts is more than enough for you for an outing, for a weekend, and all those things. And nobody cares if you put a red color short or white color t-shirt or red color t-shirt. Only Indians, the other Indians, they might react to your clothing. Otherwise, North American people, they don't, really put so keen eye on such things. Especially when I was in St. Louis, in first few weeks, whenever I used to go to this, Pizza Hut near my house for dinners, or this Burger King or this McD, which were kind of walking distance from my house. Now, I used to observe these things, and most on weekends, I was the only person who with a full pant or the trousers and a kind of t-shirt. Well, I'm from a hotter region, so I might feel it colder there. So then I have procured a couple of really what you can say heavy clothing, short sleeve t-shirts and some shorts or a three-fourths and all. Then I kind of get mixed up with those guys on a personal level, and that's how you normally start interacting with these guys, and that's how you improve your communication. So this presentation has been presentation of you as a human does matter a lot, and we need to also keep a very keen eye on such scenarios. Then we have a project reporting. These are also called as a status reporting. So the way you reflect your status to all these stakeholders does matter a lot. Some stakeholders might like a big lengthy report, as in detailed report. Some stakeholder might like a bulleted point, and then they can refer to other websites, other deliveries, and all those logs as well. But again, this is also kind of culturally driven, and you can't really create a thumb rule for West, Midwest, or West kind of North America or Caribbean region. So this again, this is you need to learn on your personal level wherever you are going. For which type of status reporting do they like? And please try to start making a habit of doing your status report at least once a day. Even if you don't want to send it, don't send it. But please keep that status report somewhere so that you'll understand what I've done today, what I had planned for next day, and so on and so forth. And it's really great habit. It helps you in a long term. Okay, yeah. PMIS we talked about a lot. Let me rephrase again. PMIS is a system which represent your project status to the top management. So whatever goes to the PMIS, I need to understand. I need to make sure it won't create a wrong picture to the top management. That's why I need to review this PMIS at least once a day. Then we have an interpersonal team skills. Active listening, yes. Listening is good throughout your life. Wherever you are, be you are in a good mood or bad mood, try to listen more and talk less. Well, I couldn't achieve that, but I don't know how I can say this thing with full confidence. But yes, believe me, if you listen more, you'll learn more. If you talk more, you'll basically keep the opportunity of learning more. And that's how it basically works in the real life as well. So active listening, one of the most crucial trait of a leader. Then we have a conflict management. We discussed about conflict management quite a few times. As a leader, I'm basically walking with my team besides me. So I need to reduce all the conflicts within the team. within me, myself, and any team members to make sure we are here for getting the work done, getting the project completed as effectively and efficiently as possible. And then culture awareness. Like we discussed, the culture awareness is really good thing. Please try not to hurt anybody around you and get around with everybody as a good, positive friend. Then there are meeting management. Yes, meeting management is one of the most crucial step as a project manager or as a new project manager. I need to learn how to manage meeting, how to complete meeting within the specified time, rather than keep discussing on informal channel. Yeah, and as a talkative person, I do that all the time. So that's kind of my two most challenging personality trait here. Then networking, build more network, get to know people more proactively. Talk with the shopkeeper, talk with the post attendant, talk with the security guard, talk with your neighbors more often, so that you can be well connected, and anybody and everybody can help you left and right if you are well connected. And of course, the political awareness. Don't be a strong politically minded person. That's what I'll suggest. Yes, you might have your favorite. You can discuss that with your family and all. But when it comes to professional discussions or professionally clarify your thought process on a particular political view, please stay away from such scenario. And of course, I need to plan my meetings effectively as per the need rather than liberally planning the meeting. And I need to strategically plan meet proactively so that I will complete my task. I will complete my intended communication within that limited period of time. Then the outputs are, of course, the project communication plan, project management plan update, specifically communication management plan update, and stakeholder engagement plan update, where I might add to whatever stakeholder I've talked today about his or her personal trait, how I can communicate with him or her better the next day, and so on and so forth. Then project documents updates are issue log, the normal, if any additional issues I need to tackle, lessons learned register. If I'm doing anything in a much better way than the others have done in past, I might update that lessons learned register so that even others can benefit from that strategy. Then project schedule. If I'm planning more meeting, then I need to understand how if I plan less meeting, how that will be effective for my project execution, and I have to work accordingly. Then of course, risk register update, any additional risk in terms of communication, in terms of any conflicts, I need to mention it there. And of course, the stakeholder register to understand how a particular stakeholder can help me out of getting the documents sanctioned effectively, or to describe the challenges or uncomfortableness in a quite informal manner, and that's really helped me out. Again, organizational process assets updates to help me out if I need to change any quality processes within my organizations, like Infosys, right? So there, I might suggest those things to the quality department, and they might think over it. So these are like updating the organizational process assets to fit or to make the project execution more effectively. And any confusion so far? Anything which you haven't understood?
No questions, sir. I'm good.
Okay, please do read this, 10th chapter in PM Book 6, where you can understand managed communication much better way. Because there are quite a few things which are excluded from these, input-output thought processes, but they are covered there. So please try to do read. It's not that big chapter, but it gives you a clear idea of how communication can be managed on a personal level as well. And believe me, this is a leader's, skill. So if you acquire more, it will help you more in your day-to-day life as well. Okay, let's try to understand the last process group here called monitor communication. The inputs to monitor communications are, as we need to improve communication, right? So monitoring communication is also one of the most crucial or critical element here. The inputs are resource management plan, communication management plan, and stakeholder engagement plan, same as the last process group, and they reflect on a similar level in terms of monitor communication. So I do monitor my resource management plan and update it whenever it required in terms of anything change, in terms of my resource gets replacement, my resource, having just married or something, so I need to give him or her more time, and because he might be emotionally pre-acquired and all those things also. And then communication management plan as an input to understand what are the things I've learned about communicating with a particular stakeholder. So the stakeholder engagement plan as well. Then the project documents, normally inputs in the monitor communication process groups are issue log, lessons learned, and project communication. Issues log talks about any issues which have incurred in the last stage. How can I carry forward, or how can I address them within that stage? And those respective actions I need to understand from the issue log. Then, of course, the knowledge management portal, knowledge management software within our communication lessons learned register, they are taken as an input. And I need to understand if others have done better than me, how can I adopt to those, policies and process to make my project more efficient. And the project communication plan, where whatever I have worked on earlier, I need to understand or learn from that and make our life easier or better day by day. Again, the work performance data, this talks about the overall efficiency of a human resources working on your project, and how to communicate them with those resources, how to make them do more, do those things effectively the next time. And that's a kind of art I need to learn as a project manager, as a leader of my team. Then, of course, I have EEFs and OPS to help me out in a day-to-day life to make my project more efficient day by day. The tools and techniques are expert judgment, PMIS. Here, expert judgment, in case if I want to get some help in managing communication, I might refer to some COE and SMEs, Center of Excellence and subject matter expert, to help me out how I can do the communication in the best possible way, one way or the other. And then the PMI system, we already talked about. This system reports to the top management in terms of how your project is executing on the ground. And then we have data analysis of a stakeholder engagement matrix, where we will reassess the stakeholder engagement day by day to add anything new which we have learned from a stakeholder. Even a stakeholder gets replaced, like an employee of a client organization, if he or she gets replaced, I need to understand or learn about the new stakeholder proactively and start communicating with him if he or she is crucial for my sanctioning or approval processes. Then the interpersonal team skills, here it's basically observation and conversation. Observation in terms of how these stakeholders and the team members are doing on day-to-day basis, what type of improvements I can suggest them, and don't go on suggesting improvement left and right. We need to understand every human have his own, preconception about himself. I might feel I'm one of the most handsome person in the world. Yeah, and believe me, these are the beliefs of many I have seen. So in those manner, we need to respect that and we need to converse accordingly. And then plan these meetings, closed door meeting, open meeting, informal channels, depending upon the need and the strategy or the tactics of the hour. I normally plan this meeting for monitoring my communication. Then outputs, work performance information. How the work performance is coming up? Is it improving enough with comparison to the organizational work performance standards? If you are, good, then no challenge. But if you are not good, then there's a problem, and we need to address that on a highest priority. Then change request, whatever change request you have, what's suggested to accept, I need to decide where can I accept, and how much I can do in the current sprint, next sprint, and so on and so forth. So me, as a project manager, is a final authority to manage all these schedules and additions to a given sprint. And that's why all these change requests, either they can be absorbed in a current sprint if we have so many resources at our disposal to do those things, or I can, add it to the next level in the next sprint so that my current plan won't get disturbed. Then the project management plan updates are communication management plan, same way, stakeholder management plan, any change in stakeholder, position, stakeholder thought process, stakeholder what you can say, comfortableness, satisfaction. I might update this stakeholder plan, and then my next commission will be reflected accordingly. The project documents update are issue log, lessons learned register, and stakeholder register. Issue logs for any additional issues or any change in issue started, I might update that. Lessons learned register, all the learnings I have done, or if I'm doing anything better than others, I might need to share those best practices with the others within my organizations, and I do it through lesson learned register or a knowledge management portal. And then we have a stakeholder register where I keep a list of stakeholder, or I can call it a stakeholder engagement matrix as well, where I keep all the details of any and every stakeholder for my project, and how he or she reacts, how he or she is capable of enhancing the project performance one way or the other, and how I can trigger him or her to make sure my project get executed on priority with the maximum efficiency at hand. And this is how I normally try to achieve monitor communication on a regularly basis as far as the PMI thought process. Any questions so far? Any confusion?
No, sir. I'm good.
Right. Let me play your short video where we'll understand how project communication management, is, explained by other trainer. Okay. So let me stop recording.